morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take. We did get through this whole week. We got 5 days in. We finally got our 5 days in. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about a rocky start yesterday? Well, it certainly was. We obviously talk about all the time, when do we really kind of consider it to be the kickoff of earnings season? And yesterday was kind of it, right? Because we started to kick it off. You get a little JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, you start to get into the financials. Today we get a little bit more. But yesterday, wow, those numbers really were dragging on the markets. And it was just amazing in the first hour of trade or so. We were down 600 points on the Dow, down 230 points or thereabouts on the NASDAQ. But we didn't stay there. We started to kind of march along and move along. We started to kind of work through things a little bit, and it was primarily financials early on. But by the time we got to the closing bell, well, we're down about 140 points, a pretty magnificent run back when you consider how far down we really were. Just an amazing move to the upside. That's why we always say it's just the first hour of trade. You just don't know about the rest of the day, but this certainly is part of it, and try to see what exactly is working. By the way, I had a conversation with some people today. Some guys on the social media platform, Twitter, were talking about something. And, you know, the interesting part was we had that unusual option activity yesterday on ASHR, which is China 300. And that actually was a put trade. And by the way, it was down 2% today, even with what we're seeing in today's market. So you just never know what's going to be shifting around a little bit. But certainly with lockdowns and some of that, we get a little bit of a glimpse. And when we see that option paper, it is amazing sometimes how accurate it can be. So we got through the day. We are much more improved. Actually, the NASDAQ actually finished in positive territory, just barely, but finished in the green. We had that volatility index. It was bounced around a little bit, got up towards that 28.5, getting close to 29, finished the day back down in the 26s, 2640, somewhere close to that. We did have some volume yesterday, a little bit of a pickup, not great, but a little bit better. We were 38.5 million contracts in terms of the options world, the derivatives world, had two biggies that were really the dominating force. It was Apple and it was Tesla. We've seen that time and time again. Played out once again. And we did have some Apple calls yesterday, and John talked about those on the 3 at 3. We were going to use those here as well yesterday, but we did have that out there with Market Rebellion, unusual option activity, and they were buying just above where the stock was, the 150s. The stock was trading 144s, got all the way up there, and a nice move to the upside there as well. So a lot of activity in Apple, in Tesla, and had a really nice tell when we'd seen a lot of that huge option paper that came into Apple yesterday. When I look at the whole day and try to figure out, all right, well, what really were some of the areas that really kind of shifted things around? It has to be crude. Crude was getting slammed early. Crude was all the way down towards 91. Finished the day above 96, closer to 96 and a half. We also had a nice move yesterday out of Nat Gas. Nat Gas was up a couple of percent, and it's flirting with $7 again. It was $6.75 yesterday. Keep an eye on that one. So we're seeing a little bit of that pull on some of the commodities back to the upside, and a little bit of movement there. And that certainly, in terms of the energy sector, that's certainly something that does play along with that. So financials, they were down 2.5%. They got a little bit better as we got through the day, but financials definitely were a pressure on the markets themselves. JP Morgan down about 3.5%. You had Wells Fargo, you had Citi, you had Bank of America, you had Goldman Sachs, all those trading. But JP Morgan certainly was the standout yesterday. I talked about energy. Energy improved a little bit for sure, but it was still down, no doubt about it, led by names like Chevron and Exxon and Conoco and BP, all to the downside. That's going to pull the energy space down. Materials were down significantly, down about 3%. They got a little bit better throughout the day as well. You take a look at U.S. Steel, it was down 4%. That's going to pull that materials down. Certainly it's going to, along with Cliffs, along with FCX, along with Alcoa, all of those names definitely pulling a little bit of what we were seeing yesterday in the market. But there were some positives out there. How about the move in technology? It was in negative territory, had a nice big swoop to the upside and finished up about 1%, led by Apple and Microsoft. I'm going to throw Intel in there as well, but the semiconductors had a great day. So one area, now we talked about that yesterday as well, because we talked about what earnings were really out there. Well, the TSM certainly was something that stood out early on. It gave up some of the gains early, and then we started to see in that space the semiconductors really take off to the upside. Finished up 2% on the day on the SMH. it was names like Qualcomm, it was NXPI, it was onsemi, it was Applied Materials, Texas Instruments. Take a look. You really did have a lot of strength coming from that side of things in the semiconductor space. So we had movers, we had Las Vegas Sands, we had Costco, we had Lucid, we had we had Boeing, Walmart, Home Depot. Those were all in positive territory yesterday, but we had some drags, no doubt. We had Moderna. We talk about that being the ups and downs. We had CF Industries. We also had Mosaic, a little bit of a pull, Airbnb. You get the idea, Datadog and DocuSign and Zoom. All those with a little bit of that pull to the downside, influencing certainly the markets to some degree. Today, we got more earnings. We got a lot more. We got Citi, got Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo a little bit more sluggish early on, but started to really take off. Citi, the second those numbers came out, people really liked what they'd seen. We're up 300 points in the pre-market. A lot of that you can definitely credit to the financials. Big move early. So the Dow was up 300 points. NASDAQ was up close to 100 points. NASDAQ has not really moved a whole heck of a lot. It's up 90, maybe 120 points. It's been kind of shifting in that little area, pretty tight little band early on this first hour. Things could change. Just take a look at yesterday. But you take a look also at the Dow itself, and then you start to see something that's really taken off. It was up over 500 points last I looked. It's just a steady, methodical move to the upside from being up 300 to 350 to 400 to 450 to over 500 points to the upside in the first hour. Things could change. Also, take a look at crude. Talked about that yesterday. Got all the way down towards 91. We finished 96.5 today. It's rolling itself up, getting a little bit closer and closer to 100. It was 98.50 last I looked. Bitcoin having a little bit of a bounce as well. It's up about 6% up towards 21,000. That's certainly not anything that's hurting the markets, definitely helping a little bit. You take a look over at that VXN. We've had a lot of volatility there. And we talk about the VIX itself in terms of it's gotten underneath 25, but then it pops, it seems like, right back up towards 27, 28, 29. That VXN's been pretty tight range, 32s to 33s for this week. We'll see how she closes out today, but also you got to price in the weekend. So don't want to overread what we see in today's stuff. But anyway, we get back to the 2-year. We talk about the 2s and the 10s. That spread is still there. The 2 years up there at 312. You look over at the 10-year, it's 293. So that is still something to keep your eye very, very closely on. So when we talk about those banks and the influence on the markets, Wells Fargo, profit declines. It's a bit of an issue. Citi, beat on the estimates. It was helped by some of the higher rates. Not so bad. United Health, up about 3% early on. It raised the forecast. They beat on their profits. So we had some earnings outside of just the financials as well that's helped buoying and sort of pushing these markets to the upside as well. You look at those financials early out of the gate, up about 1.5% before you can blink an eye, up nearly 2.5%. Healthcare, nice move to the upside. That was one of the sectors I picked as at the very beginning of the year as one of the sectors that certainly could have a pretty big influence on the markets to the upside. It's really come through pretty nicely. Really happy to see what's going on there. Energy, kind of hanging around, just up about 1% or so. Not a monstrous move, but a decent move early on. Technology with a move well over 1% early on as well. Matter of fact, the only thing that we could find that was actually in the red today were utilities early on. They were getting a little bit of pressure, but you look at those banks, it's names like Citi, it's Wells Fargo, it's Bank of New York Mellon, it's Bank of America, all in positive territory early on. You got Penn Gaming, you got Caesar, you got eBay, you got PayPal, all those contributing. I mentioned UNH had a nice start to the day, throw in American Express, throw in Goldman Sachs, very strong. You can see the financials really are right now what's buoying these markets for the most part. It's getting a little bit of help from others as well. Not getting any help at all from the Chinese names, though. You look at NetEase and Baidu and JD and PDD, all those names in negative territory in a pretty big way. Lucid, also in negative territory. Boeing was worse. It was getting a lot better. It was, matter of fact, starting to get out of the red almost, but getting a little bit closer at least, but still something that was pulling on the markets to a small degree. Got two unusuals for you, and then we're out of here. Bank of America is the first one. Bank of America trading 31.30. Now, we talk about the financials. You got a little bit of a move across the board on the financials. We've got earnings on Monday in Bank of America. Somebody out there looking for a little bit of positive. They're buying right at the money, right where it's trading. The 31 calls, 7,500 of this next Friday is expiring 1 week out. they're buying those calls, 65 cents up to about 94 cents. Stock was trading 31.30 at the time of that trade. Keep an eye on that one. Energy. Is energy going to keep on pulling back? Well, maybe it pulls back a little bit. We've had this nice bounce from 91 to 98, but we're also looking at Patterson, PTEN. It was trading right around 12 and a half. And we did see some put buying in there, something to keep an eye on because they were right before in this particular name. They were buying the July 13 puts. They got a profitable trade there. Selling out of those, buying the August 11 puts, going to the downside there. 8,700 of those trading for about 50 cents. So keep an eye on that one. Doesn't mean all the energy is going to get pulled back, but keep an eye on Patterson. We've got somebody who had a right call to the downside, looking for a little bit more to the downside. We'll see how that plays out. Folks, have a great day of trading today. Have a great weekend. Make sure that it's safe. Look forward to seeing you on Monday.